Have you ever stumbled upon a name, one you've never heard before? And yet, it feels familiar. That's how I first encountered Dvorakia. Not in a book, not in a history class, but in a conversation, whispered by a traveller on a train. He spoke of a place deep in the mountains, a city that once thrived, and then vanished. No ruins, no graves, not even a single surviving resident. Just silence. Some say the government covered it up. Others claim the place was cursed. But every theory ends the same way. There's no proof it ever existed. No official maps, no photos, no records, except a few blurry images surfacing on obscure websites, buildings that don't match any known style, signs in a language no one can recognize, and in every photo, fog. Thick, consuming fog. That's when I knew I had to find it. And so the story of Dvorakia began. My search led me far from cities to a crumbling monastery high in the Alps. Inside, beneath stone arches and dust-laden shelves, was a forgotten library, untouched by time. The air smelled of parchment, wax, and something older, something ancient. I spent hours combing through brittle documents, yellowed pages, maps with borders that no longer existed. Then I found it, a hand-drawn map with a single red dot labelled Dvorakia. No date, no coordinates, just that name. I showed it to the librarian, an elderly woman with a sharp memory and eyes that seemed to see through me. She paused, then whispered, "You shouldn't follow that map. Dvorakia chooses who remembers it." I asked her what she meant, but she simply turned and walked away. The map, however, stayed in my hands, and it burned with a question I couldn't ignore. If the world forgot Dvorakia, why did it remember me? We assembled a small team, an archaeologist, a linguist, a skeptic, and myself. Each of us driven by different reasons, but all pulled toward the same mystery. We entered the mountains under cover of night, flashlights slicing through dense, silver fog. The path was steep and overgrown, swallowed by moss and time. No GPS signal, no cell reception. Only the sound of our breath, the crunch of leaves, and something else. A faint humming, like wind trapped inside a tunnel. Then we saw him. A man, old, tall, draped in a tattered coat, leaning on a carved wooden staff. He stood motionless on the trail, like he'd been waiting for us. We called out, but he didn't answer. Finally, he spoke. "Dvorakia doesn't want to be found, but she remembers those who seek her." And then he turned, walking into the mist. Without a word, we followed. The old man led us through terrain that felt untouched for centuries. Gnarled trees loomed overhead, their twisted branches forming natural arches. The fog never lifted. If anything, it thickened. And yet, we trusted him. He walked with certainty, never hesitating, as if retracing steps from long ago. Eventually, he stopped. Before us stood a slab of stone, half buried in earth and moss. He reached down, brushed away the dirt, and there it was. A wooden sign nearly rotted through, with faint hand-carved letters. Dvorakia. The word hit me like thunder. It was real. He turned to us, eyes dark as obsidian. "Most who find this place do not return," he said, "because what lies ahead is not for the eyes, but for the memory." Then, with the gentlest motion, he pointed to a trail so narrow it barely existed. And like mist in the wind, he vanished. We were alone. But Dvorakia was near. As the final light of day faded, we reached the cliff's edge. And there, beneath a blanket of swirling fog, we saw it. Ruins stretched across the valley like bones of a forgotten beast. Spiraled towers, half collapsed. Stone paths glowing faintly, as if lit from within. Structures that seemed to shift when you looked too long. Fluid, unreal. None of us spoke. The silence was overwhelming, sacred. It felt like standing inside a memory that didn't belong to you. I raised my camera, but the lens fogged over. I wiped it, again and again, but the image refused to be captured. That's when I understood. Dvorakia wasn't a city of stone and streets. It was a story, one that lived only in those who found it. We never stepped into the valley,